In this short video, I'm going to try to summarize a day-long workshop on influence. And it really comes down to 3 steps. What are those 3 steps? Pause, read minds, and framing. Frame your message. The way I talk about this in the workshops is me, you, us. Why do we start with me? We start with me because you can't change other people, but you can influence them by the way that you show up. That change comes from within. Most people, they don't listen to understand, they listen to respond. Most people see something happen outside of them and then they react. They react unconsciously rather than respond consciously. What do I mean by this? Well, there's this little space inside us between seeing something or hearing something and our reaction. And the best communicators are able to cultivate that space so they can choose. It's hard to do because it's a matter of consciousness, right? Most people think that they are their thoughts, but human beings, we are not our thoughts. Our brain is a tool. We're more like the silent witness of our thoughts, the spirit behind those thoughts. And we have a choice as to what those thoughts are and a choice as to how we communicate. But most people don't know how to cultivate that space to choose, that pause. And there's a lot of ways to do this. You can meditate, you can journal, you can go to therapy, you can do a thought catcher exercise. Google that one, that's pretty cool. But I'm going to give you a mantra right now that you can say over and over in the back of your mind throughout the day to yourself. Nobody needs to know that you're doing this. But this mantra will help you separate from your thoughts. It'll help you cultivate that space to choose. It's very simple. All you have to say to yourself is, I am aware of my thoughts. Over and over again. I'm aware of my thoughts. I'm aware of my thoughts. Or even, if you want to simplify it, I am aware. Mantra can, over time, help you cultivate this space to pause before you react. Let's move on to reading minds. So, in my workshops, I'll often say to the group, it's not what you say, but, and then everybody responds, how you say it. But then I try to reframe it for people because I believe it's more accurate to say, it's not what you say, but what is heard. And we can't frame our message without understanding the real human needs of the person that we're talking to or the group of people that we're talking to. Human needs. Remember Maslow? It really is what drives our emotions. And it drives our actions, these human needs. We all share the same human needs. That's what makes us human. But different needs show up in different ways for different personality types, right? So we've got 4 personality types. The direct style communicator, the bottom line, like just give it to me straight. Sometimes they run roughshod over people because they're so focused on this results, right? That's their need, driving results. Achievement, you might want to think about it also as avoiding weakness or control or progress. Another communication style is the influence style. And these folks are the upbeat people on the team. They're the cheerleaders of the group. Don't bring me your negativity kind of people. The kind of people who, when it comes time to the drudgery work, may move on to the bright, shiny object. The next bright, shiny object. These people are driven by a need for recognition, of some play, social contact, optimism, to express themselves. So listen for those needs that that they may not even be aware of themselves that they're expressing below the surface. Then we've got the steady style. These are the folks who are driven by a need for harmony. The people are like, have we checked in with Tawana? Is John on board with this? Let's make sure everybody's okay before we move forward. Really diplomatic people. Sometimes, though, they might be a little oversensitive or slow things down. So learn to identify this style. They're driven by this need for harmony, nurturance, to please, reassurance, familiarity. And then the 4th style is the conscientious communicator. These are the people who are more cautious and reflective, facts-oriented, and are driven by a need for accuracy, right? So adherence to standards, understanding, a little bit of personal space. The kind of person who's not really comfortable in a networking meeting, but really good at closing the door and focusing on the detail work. These people ask a lot of questions, not to slow things down, but to get it right the first time. They don't want to do rework. All right, so when we can listen in the same way that we listen to our own feelings and needs, if we can listen to the other person's feelings and needs, what they're expressing below the words, we'll have a much better chance of framing our message. And I call this empathy. And I don't ask you to be empathetic to be nice. I'm asking you to be empathetic so that you know what's really going on. You're situationally aware so that you can frame your message in a way that it's heard. So let's move on to part 3, framing, or in the me, you, us model, it would be us. Okay, so really what this comes down to is changing your mindset so that you're not communicating in a way that it's like you against me on the opposite side of the table, but actually so that we're coming to the same side of the table to work on the problem together, right? Like it's almost like it's a puzzle. And I'll tell a story. I ask who in the audience here has kids. Some people raise their hands. I say, okay, your daughter comes down at 10 o'clock at night and she says, Mommy, I want some ice cream. What are you going to say? Get back in bed. Get your butt back in bed, right? Then she comes down the next night and she says, Mommy, can I please have some ice cream? No, get your butt back in bed. Third night she comes down and she says, Mommy, can we share a bowl of ice cream and talk about our day? Wow, get out the spoons, right? What did she do there? So in the first version of that, it was me, 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 me. In the second one, she tried to be empathetic, didn't really pull it off very well. But in the third one, it wasn't about your needs or my needs. It was about how can we get both of our needs met together. So a great way to do this is to think about how you're going to start. How are you going to frame your message, right? We all suffer from something called anchoring bias. There's over 180 human biases that are now documented. One of them is anchoring bias. And anchoring bias means the first thing you hear will influence the rest of the conversation. So the way that you start is really, really important. You know, you can use contrasting, for example. I don't want you to think that I don't appreciate you, but I do want you to come to the meeting on time. There was a study done. Police officers went into the inner city. They said to the kids, can I talk to you for a minute? Now, what do you think the kids did? They bolted, right? The framing was terrible. They didn't explain why they're there, what they're there for. They went in again and they said to the kids, hi, I'm Officer Dan. I'm walking around the community trying to get to know people. Do you have a few minutes to talk? And more of the kids stuck around. Why? Because the message was framed. You knew what it was about and why you were there. Last example I'll give to you is you go to the dentist. And the dentist, she needs to give you a shot. And she says, this isn't going to hurt a bit. And then she gives you the shot and it hurts. Where's your trust with the dentist? Because she framed it really poorly. But if she were to say, I'm not going to lie, this is going to hurt, and then you get the same shot, the same pain, where's your trust now with the dentist? Much higher. So that's the me, you, us process. Like I said before, there's a lot of information on confidentcommunicator.com. Join our community and become a better, influential communicator. Thanks for listening.